Hi, I'm Tinny from minibulldesign, and today I'm up in the studio in my area where I read every night. It's daylight now, it's about 3 o'clock, but in an hour from now it'll be jet black, pitch dark. That's the way it is in Maine in the wintertime. So I'll come up and turn on my LED light that's running off my solar panel, charging the little gel cell battery down here, and I'll sit here and read for a couple hours. I've got some real high quality reading material. I like to read real interesting stuff. And what I'm going to read tonight is about air and space, invasions of the drones. It's about all these drones that they have going all over the place for surveillance. Now, in this video, I just wanted to sit here and talk about stove design. Now, we've run through the series of the Bongo Pro 4, which is probably one of my most complicated stoves, and is kind of, if you look at my stove history right from the beginning, I think I was the first one to start making stoves out of solid aluminum. I know I was. Nobody else was doing that back then. And also the first one to put the legs on it and the pot stands and all that. Now the very first one I made, the Voodoo, the very first Voodoo, I made out of solid aluminum. It had a very tiny base, wasn't airy at all, it was very compact. And it didn't even have pot stand legs or anything. It was just a little solid aluminum stove, and I put a remote on it. I believe I was the first one to do that, at least for a production model. And I was feeding it with a remote, and I was really happy with it because it was a new, exciting idea. Never seen anything like it before. But after it ran for about 8 minutes, it overheated and started venting. I.e. the alcohol in the base started boiling, and it really boiled. It threw flames right out of the top, right straight up like a little volcano. After that happened, I saw that that was not going to work. And I spent, I think, 2 days searching for some way around it. And I came to the conclusion that the best way to get around it was to separate the heat from the flame from the fuel in the base, because I knew the fuel was boiling. And I looked at a lot of different materials to do that with, and every material I looked at had one of two problems, or both problems. One problem would be sealing it. If you put a piece of it in between the hot part and the cold part, some way to seal it. And the second thing was, most of the things that would insulate it were also sensitive to heat and would melt or burn or whatever. So when I finally stumbled on a silicone tubing, which is good to 500 or 600 degrees, a lot more than I was going to subject it to, and had the ability to seal itself, I was a pretty happy boy. And that has served me well over the years. All of my stoves, except maybe the choke hazard and a few like that, are based on that silicone heat block design, and it works very well. Now, talking about stove design, the top that I'm making now, the Crazy Hot Top, I'm going to shorten that up to Crazy Hot Top, CHT. I think I'm either going to call it a Hot Top or CHT, probably CHT, Crazy Hot Top. That is one of those designs that will only work if you have a thermal block, because if you went back to my original Voodoo one-piece stove and you put that much heat on the top, the rest of the stove would immediately heat right up and boil. It wouldn't work. You've got to have a really good high-quality heat dam between the top and the bottom if you're going to run a top like that, because that top gets hot, really hot. That's what makes it vaporize the alcohol in the top of the wick and make it burn so hot. But I've got it down now so I can also use it for just a regular stove or just a simmer. And the part below the wick, the trough in there, will also catch any alcohol that you happen to overfill the stove with, so it can't run down and burn off the tubing. So I've got a pretty good top there, and I think for my next offering, whichever stove I decide to go with, I think I will exclusively use that top on that stove and on that stove only. Now that takes care of the top of the stove, and of course the body by default has to be silicone or it won't work. That leaves us to design the bottom of the stove. Well, I've come to some conclusions about that. Really, all the bottom of the stove has to do is hold the legs, if you're going to have pot stand legs, and if you're going to have outrigger legs, it's got to hold them. So it's got a possibility of just two things it's going to do. It's going to hold the top leg, the bottom legs, or hold both of them. And of course you could take all the legs off and just set it down and put a wire pot stand on it and use it for a regular stove. So that kind of a design would be fairly versatile. But getting back to the body, if that's all that body is going to do, then all it needs to be is just a block of aluminum. Round is easy to work with, so a piece of round aluminum. Now, since my silicone heat block on the outside diameter is 1 inch, it would need to be big enough so that I can install legs beyond that. So 1/4 of an inch all the way around, which 1/4 on each side, inch and a half would be the ideal size. And as far as the depth goes, it's got to be deep enough for me to be able to slide a leg in far enough to have a good solid foundation so it doesn't rock. So I'd say 3/8 to 1/2 inch. So 1/2, 1.5 by 1/2 with the silicone and the CHT top. And then my thought on the legs is to make them at a very shallow angle so the stove stays close to the ground. And the longer the legs are, the more stable it is. So knock yourself out, go with a good long set of legs. And then the beauty of the whole thing's the 3 holes in the top for the 3 top legs. Once you come out of that stove with that 1/8 aluminum, you can go anywhere with it. You can come up at an angle, drill the holes at an angle, come up so you miss the flame, and then go out to any width pot with fingers on the edge to capture it. Now, if you've got 3 of those capturing the pot, and you've got a good set of outrigger legs, you've got a really stable stove. I mean, really stable. The only thing I can think of to improve on that is if you put snowshoes on each one of the legs so it would set on a snowpack. That's been a problem I've had on a snowpack, finding a place to set my stove down. And I may look into that, putting snowshoes on them. I'm not sure what I'd make it out of, but they'd have to be fairly big around to support the stove and the pot. Maybe, you know, like 2-3 inches. But anyway, so for my next stove, I think that's the format I'm going to go with. Probably will offer it with a set of legs for a 12 centimeter pot. That one set of legs will cover a wide variety of pots, and then another set of legs for, say, Snow Peak 600 and 700 and that type of thing. Those 2 sets of legs, CHT, crazy hot top, silicone body, and an 1.5 inch base with outrigger legs. And just a nipple on the side, nothing fancy, with 2 feet of fuel line. And I found that those stoves run very well off of the Big Gulp remote. I've been running one now, a prototype, and it works really well with the Big Gulp remote. So that's probably where I'll go with my next design. So I think that's everything for this video. In a little while here I can sit down here and start reading. Look forward to that every night. I'm Tinny from minibulldesign. Get out and hike. Take a friend. Enjoy the great outdoors, and more important than anything, try to have a really great day and try to have some fun today. You deserve it. Bye-bye.